Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday service for November 2nd of 2025. This year is really flying by. And today's talk is called Joyous Rejuvenation. For a lot of our human history, there have been many, many people over the centuries that have intuitively sensed that there was a mind body connection and that our mental life actually affects our physical being. And of course, in recent decades, science has begun to map that the intuition that we have, that we now know that our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs can actually influence our physiological system, our cellular functioning, our immune responses, and even our recovery from injury or illness. So today I'm going to explore how our mental states and thought patterns actually affect our bodies, and then focus more specifically on how those effects touch into the rejuvenation process, meaning by that the body's ongoing repair, regeneration, and renewal capacities. But before we begin that, I want to do a little experiment with you. So I'm going to ask you that you put your hands together and get the base of your hands as clear together as possible and come up and see how your fingers match up with each other. And now I want you to drop one hand and just take one hand. It doesn't matter right or left, that's up to you. And just think, lengthen, 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 and just keep looking at your hand and just go lengthen, 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 lengthen. And now put your other hand with it together and look at what has happened. As you can see, palms of my hands are right where they were before, and yet my fingers are longer on my right hand than they were on my left. That is just from looking at my hand and telling it to lengthen. So, you know, that's just one example of how our mind affects these bodies. And, there's a lot of overlapping things that go on with our minds, our thoughts, our feelings that also affect our body. And, as we know from just experience for most of us, that thoughts of stress or worry, threats to ourselves in one way or the other, actually tightens our body up. And sometimes, if there's a stress trigger that we've had, we can actually find our bodies shaking from fear. And what's happening is that stress trigger has actually released adrenaline into our bodies and is actually activating the hypothalamic and pituitary adrenal areas in our bodies, which result in elevated cortisol. And these changes influence our heart rate, our blood pressure, digestion, immune cell activity, inflammation. For example, high cortisol suppresses certain immune functions and can promote more inflammation in our system. And chronic psychological stress is actually associated with higher levels of inflammatory psychosis, which is altering our immune cell responses. It slows our healings, and we have greater vulnerability to illness. And for instance, wounds heal less readily if we're in a highly stressed environment or situation. And, you know, thought patterns, especially the persistent negative ones and psychological stressors, have been shown to alter gene expression in immune cells, turning up genes for inflammation and turning down genes for an antiviral response. In one summary that I read, it stated the way we interact with our surroundings actually affects our genetics. So our mental state actually influences our cellular repair, um, creates more stress in our body, which then affects how well cells regenerate. And some articles that I read indicate that a positive emotional state can accelerate healing by substantial amounts. Now, thoughts and emotions actually modulate our vascular tone, our heart rate, our respiration patterns, muscle tensions, and also tissue oxygenation and metabolic exchange, which all influence our tissue repair and rejuvenation process. Now, we all know that thoughts influence our behavior. If one really believes I'm healthy and I will recover, we actually sleep better, we eat better, we're more geared to exercise. If we're on medications for some reason or another, we are more more of a tendency to adhere to some of those medical regimes, all which support rejuvenation. Conversely, if we really have this feeling, why bother? We're not going to heal anyway. This is nothing out there can help me. We actually will stop exercising. We don't worry about our diet. We don't worry if we get enough sleep. And of course, all that affects our cells to repair slower. So, together, these mechanisms actually provide a bridge between mental life and physical renewal. So, what we have to come to understand is that thoughts affect the body. And why that matters? Well, there's a lot of, because as if we understand that our thoughts affect our body, those thoughts help us to reframe health and healing as holistic, not just a physical thing, not it's just not something that we can take a pill for, but that there's an aspect of us that understands that our thoughts are part of that healing process. And when we take time to meditate, we have a positive mindset. Those two things themselves actually help with our stress reduction. And they're not just nice extras, but they're actually influencing our physiological repair system. And understanding that thoughts actually affect the body gives us the importance of a mindset for chronic illness, aging, recovering from injury or surgeries. And it's been found that rejuvenation, which has been thought of as purely biologic, cells dividing, tissues repairing, is influenced by the psyche as well as physical intervention. So let's define rejuvenation. And by rejuvenation, I mean That's tissue repair after an injury with our skins, muscles, organs. It's cellular regeneration, our own stem cell activation. It's a renewal of tissues. It's recovery from stress, inflammation, oxidation in our cells, and it's maintaining or restoring our functional systems, the immune system, vascular system, endocrine system, as we all get older in our lives and these bodies age. It also causes cellular and systematic homeostasis, which is a balancing of breakdown and renewal. And in other words, rejuvenation is the renewal and repair side of the body's functionings. So there are some thought patterns that actually hinder rejuvenation. And one that is chronic stress, worry, ruminating over things from the past over and over and over again. So these persistent negative thoughts create a sustained stress response. It elevates our cortisol levels. It suppresses our immune functioning, creates higher inflammation, lower tissue repair, and basically stressed individuals heal wounds more slowly. Therefore, negative thinking or worrying actually threatens the body's renewal capabilities. Now, for a lot of us, most of us listening to this YouTube, we are aging. We are in that aging process. But if we believe that we are old and broken, my body's worn out, or there's nothing else to repair, this mindset actually translates into poor physiological outcomes. There's a whole bunch of literature out there on the mindset of aging. And that suggests that how people think about aging actually influences our health, behavior, and outcome. So if cellular repair is partly demand driven, in other words, I know I'm going to recover, therefore I engage recovery processes in my body, then a defeatist mindset can reduce that demand. And if a person thinks I'm weak, I can't heal, then they may be less likely to engage in behaviors that support repair, which is adequate rest, or proper nutrition, exercise, movement of some kind, leading indirectly to slower rejuvenation. So emotions like anger, hostility, anxiety, fear have been linked to increased inflammation, vascular dysfunction, and impaired healing. Inflammatory processes are the opposite of rejuvenation. Repair requires inflammation to be controlled and then resolved. On the other hand, if we have a positive mindset, optimistic about how our body can heal, and if we truly tell ourselves and believe that my body does heal, I will get better, I am getting better, this actually creates a physiological aspect in our body that's conducive to repair because it lowers our stress hormones. It's more of a parasympathetic activity, and it leads to better sleep, immune functioning. It gives us that idea that I better eat better, get the right exercise. So it moves us then to do the physical activities that we need to do to assist in that functioning. And of course, we always have the placebo effect. For example, how someone thinks about disease and symptoms can influence whether they have symptoms and how actually severe they are. And similarly, one article suggests that positive emotional states actually accelerate healing by up to 40% in most of the studies. Now, practices that increase awareness of bodily states and create calm, like meditation, yoga, tai chi, qigong, actually boost autonomic balance. They reduce stress, thereby improving our immune system and our repair functions. And for us more mature adults, mind body exercises like yoga, tai chi, qigong, and all actually improved engagement and internal focus, which is supporting our health, supporting the rejuvenation process in our body. And in a recent study of expert meditators, central and peripheral nervous system metrics were more coherent, more in balance, indicating an improved physiological system within our body. And people with stronger mind body connections reported better emotion regulation and well being, which suggests that a belief system which respects the body, trusts its regenerative capacity, and holds positive values supports rejuvenation. And though this is more behavioral than purely cognitive, thoughts lead to behaviors. If you think your body will rejuvenate, you are more likely to get enough sleep, eat the right foods, move, rest, therefore engage the repair systems. And the thought itself sets in motion behaviors that supports physiological renewal. So one of the things they did some testing on was on wound healing and tissue repair. And that testing shows that physiological stress impairs wound healing. The, the wounds closed slower, there was more inflammation, and sometimes even more um, physiological aspects to the wound itself not healing. Whereas positive mental states like relaxation, expectation of healing, reduce stress, and they noticed a huge improvement in the time that it took tissues to heal, reduced inflammation in the areas dramatically, and cut the repair time, the healing time way down. So repair and renewal includes constant turnover of immune cells, regeneration of tissues, removal of damaged cells, and renewing an energy balance. So chronic stress or negative thinking actually suppresses the immune cell function and reduces the effectiveness of vaccinations. It increased dramatically the risk of infection. And in contrast, a calmer mental state actually supported your immune system and healthier inflammatory control, which in turn supported rejuvenation at the cellular level. Now, our cells face wear and tear constantly. They, um, they're always, well, let's look at it. The air we breathe has a lot of toxicity in it. Our foods have toxicity in it. We know now that drinking water out of plastic bottles that have been in the sun actually have microscopic plastic aspects to them. So those cells inside these bodies are facing this wear and tear constantly. And a thought environment of stress actually accelerates this damage to our system. And it reduces the regenerative capacity. However, what they found is positive mental states, even though the diet is just the same, actually enhances the pathways to regeneration. And of course, repair is supported by good vascular supply, adequate oxygen, nutrients, removal of waste, and thoughts that produce relaxation boosted the parasympathetic system, rest and digest. It improved heart rate. It improved the passage of fluid through the circulatory and lymphatic systems. And thoughts of stress did just the opposite. Now, the passage of fluid through the circulatory and lymphatic systems is called perfusion. And good perfusion means better delivery of repair molecules, tissue renewal. Negative thoughts actually blocked the movement of that fluid. And one article that I read stated your thoughts literally alter how you experience pain. The speed at which your cells repair and regenerate is directly influenced by your mental state and the thoughts you hold. So the mental state actually acts upstream of how well the body renews. So, here we are, a lot of us some in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And aging is often conceived as an accumulation of damage to cells and a reduced ability to regenerate. However, a mindset plays directly into aging and rejuvenation. The expectations one has about aging, health, repair, and vitality matter very significantly. For example, there was an article called How Much Do Our Thoughts Shape Our Health? And that article reported that people's perception of time and of healing actually influence the wound healing speed for people that have had surgeries or accidents or whatever. And in addition, the research emphasized that to promote physical, mental, and cognitive health across the lifespan, we must target the brain body biomarkers and not just treat each symptom in isolation. Therefore, for aging and rejuvenation, the mental dimension is integral. A mindset of decline can literally produce decline. A mindset of repair and renewal actually bolsters the renewal. So, what practical steps can we take to orient our thoughts toward supporting rejuvenation? And here's just a few suggestions. Number one is a firm belief in your body's capacity to repair. Even after injury or illness, just think, my body is healing. At this very moment, my body knows how to heal and it's doing the healing process. My cells know how to renew. And if we keep our mind on that rather than at my age, that will never repair the same. At my age, whatever you want to say negatively. Your body doesn't care how old you are. It was built to regenerate. And of course, we can always use visualization and imagery. And so, as we're saying, my body is healing, my cells know how to renew. We can imagine our tissues repairing. We can imagine the old cells leaving and brand new cells full of vitality coming in. And some studies have even shown that expectation and imagery can actually influence the healing speed. And of course, Joe Dispenza's work is a great example of this. people who have done his workshops have learned to see new cells, to see their body at a youthful age, to see things happen. And eventually, this actually manifests for them. So, having a mindset of growth rather than decline, especially in aging, just adopt the idea that the body can still renew, adapt, regenerate, not just break down. No matter what the body is showing you, it's only showing you that because underlying all, that's your underlying belief system. So monitor your self talk. Replace thought patterns like, I'm broken, nothing's going to help me now, with more hopeful ones like, I'm engaging repair. My body is regenerating. My body knows how to regenerate and is doing so now. So identify how you ruminate things from the past. This happened to me 52 years ago, and I'm still angry about it. And you ruminate over what happened. At one point, it was last year, then it became 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And you still are ruminating and holding that anger and frustration and animosity all those years. And then we go into worry and fear and hostility. And these mental habits sustain a stress physiology. So reframe the worries, cultivate an aspect of gratitude, foster compassion. And if we are ruminating about something that happened 52 years ago, maybe you do a visualization of putting all of that into a boat on a river and let it go downstream. Let it go out of your life. So when we have a stressful thought, one time thinking that may not derail any repair. But when we keep having these stressful thoughts over and over and over again, that becomes our mindset, and all of that undermines the rejuvenation of our body. So, how can we help that? First of all, build a mind body awareness. Mindfulness meditation, yogas, Tai Chi, Qigong actually helps to strengthen the mind body connection. It improves our awareness of our internal bodily signals, and it reduces our physiological stress. One study of older adults found that relaxation, breathing, yoga, mind body connection actually enhanced our satisfaction, our internal focus, and health. So you can also do a body scan practice. Increase your awareness of bodily sensations. This helps you to detect when you're tense, when repair is needed, and direct your attentions to zones of renewal. And of course, we always have to align our behaviors with regenerative thoughts. Having adequate, high quality sleep is fundamental for rejuvenation. If you believe your body is repairing, you'll prioritize sleep, putting the right nutrients into our bodies, the proteins, the antioxidants, the omega-3s, the micronutrients. Our bodies need these specialized nutrients for healing. And if we don't give it that, it decreases our ability to repair. And of course, movement of some kind, exercise that stimulates the renewal process, strength training, low impact aerobics, stretching, all allow for a rest recovery cycle. And of course, stress reduction because mental stress affects repair. Put in relaxation technique, deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, taking walks in nature. And something that I heard this past week is to take 3 deep, slow breaths in and out. And as you breathe in, ask yourself what you need right at that moment. I need peace. As you breathe in, I breathe in the peace of God. And as you breathe out, I breathe the peace of God into my body. I breathe in the love of God, and I breathe the love of God into my body. I breathe in the health of God, and the health of God flows into my body. So, I mean, that's just one thing that you can do. But if you believe in your capacity to heal and you adhere to any medical regimes that you're following, it actually facilitates tissue repair and rejuvenation. Um, First of all, we have to recognize that the body retains a capacity to repair, and adapt. And so just knowing that and holding that in mind really assists the body in doing that. You know, but one thing that we have to understand is thoughts are powerful, but they are not magical. They support, but they do not replace. So severe pathology may require surgery, rehabilitation, medical treatment. And not all outcomes are under mental control. Genetic predispositions, injuries, environmental exposures, toxin, they all matter in this. And yet, if we hold our thoughts consistently, it has been shown that even some of those genetic predispositions can change. But please beware of victim blaming. If something doesn't heal in the time you want it to, we always start blaming ourselves. I didn't do it right. Something else out there is causing me not to have this. It's my fault this isn't working, which is not true. Remember that it took Myrtle Fillmore 2 years to heal tuberculosis in her body. 2 years. That's commitment. That's patience. That is underlying absolute knowing that God is in charge of this body. And all she had to do, she knew all she had to do was just hold the thought, I am a child of God. I do not inherit sickness. And I am a child of God. This body is built to repair. And just holding that thought starts to shift and change everything. So let's take a look at your hands again. So put them together again. And as you can see, my fingers are now back to the state they were in. So once again, holding everything the state. So probably just like me, they're back to being the same size. This just shows you that physical change done on a mental level is not a one-time fix. You have to stay with whatever thoughts you're having toward your health. And this also brings your awareness to what your thoughts have been about your health. Whatever you're thinking, the majority of the time is what your body's responding to. So just remember to keep coming back to the affirmations of health and healing for your body. So if you have something going on with your kidneys or something else, one time, just as we did here, and we said lengthen, 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 and it was only about 30 seconds, and those fingers lengthened. If you put your hand over where your kidneys are and affirm that your kidneys are healing, repairing, rejuvenating, and you do it for 30 seconds, just as with your hand, there are changes that are starting to occur in your kidneys. But you can't do it for 30 seconds and then spend 3 hours thinking about how bad your kidneys are. Every time you think about your kidneys, you have to place your hand over them and say, my kidneys are repairing, they're rejuvenating, they're coming back to health, they're expressing greater and greater health every moment. You have to keep this up. How long? Took Myrtle Fillmore 2 years to overcome what she had, tuberculosis, which is considered at that time a deadly disease. But she did it. You can do it. So I'd like us to take a few minutes and going within. So just close your eyes and take a few deep, slow breaths and feel your body relaxing. Just breathe in and out slowly. And then just begin to breathe in thoughts or statements that you would like to have in your life. I breathe in the love of God, and the love of God flows through my body. I breathe in the health of God, and the health of God flows through my body. I breathe in the joy of God, and the joy of God flows through my body. And now just begin to breathe slowly and peacefully once more. And just think to yourself, at this moment, my body is healing. My cells are renewing. My body is returning to God's blueprint of health and wholeness. If there's a specific organ or body part that needs something, my heart is now beginning to function as it was designed to function. The cells in my right knee now repair themselves and return to perfect health. All the cells in my body are now repairing themselves back to their true nature of health. And just sit with that for just a couple moments. And now take a deep breath in. As we let it out, we thank our body and ourselves for choosing health and doing the work to make it so. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that this has assisted you a little bit in helping your body to rejuvenate and come back to the life and fullness of God that we all look forward to. God bless everyone. Have a beautiful week.